Hello and welcome back to Firefox OS for developers, the platform HTML5 deserves. Today we're going to chat a bit about getting started building an app for Firefox OS. So the good news is there's nothing new in there. If you're a web developer, you actually can start building an application.
Yeah, you can use the toolchain that you're used to using and that you're familiar with and comfortable with. If you want to use Vi, you can use Vi. If you want to use whatever text editor of your choice, you can use whatever text editor of your choice. But it's about tools that are already in your comfort zone.
Yeah. The issue that a lot of developers are finding is like when you come from web development, you're used to a big screen, you're used to a fast computer, you're used to having a lot of resources. Now we tell you that the phones that Firefox OS is coming out in the first wave are going to be very low spec phones with smaller screens. Do you think that's a problem for developers, or do you think the barrier is not that high to get into that mindset?
Well, I think there are a number of tools out there, and we're gonna talk about some of them that allow developers to simulate that environment effectively. Different types of events, click events on one hand, touch events on the other.
Every browser, and it doesn't matter which one it is, every modern browser has great developer tools in there. So you have information about what went wrong in your JavaScript. You have information about what CSS has been applied to your page and what's going on there. So in Firefox, we got the developer tools built in. Most people will have come from Firebug, which was an extension, but we have inbuilt tools as well, which do all the things that you want to have. And one big thing here is the responsive view, which allows you actually in the browser to resize the main component of the browser to a certain size. So you can simulate a 320 by 480 pixel phone. You can simulate a tablet. You can also rotate them without having to send things onto the device. And while you're doing that, you have still the full screen for your debugging, because that's another big issue. There's debugging tools for the phone, but then you actually either overlay the information and you don't have much screen space. In this case, you got the full screen space for your debugging, but you can simulate the phone size in there. I think it's important, though, to not fix your things to 320 by 480 pixels, because that's the issue we had with iPhone 1, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you end up with really weird-looking apps that just kind of hover around in the top left corner. So responsive thinking needs to be part of app development when it comes to Firefox OS, just as it needs to be part of general web design thinking on the web across all devices, really, because we're in a place now where the web is a mobile platform.
Yes. And every browser, as I said, has these tools. So, for example, what is great in the Chrome developer tools is that they also simulate touch events. So if you just want to make sure that your code supports touch events, you can actually you can go to the Chrome browser, you can turn on the setting that every click is recorded as a touch event, and then you can test it until you're ready to send it out to the phone.
Yeah, I think this is really important. Developers who are thinking about using touch and leveraging the touch capabilities of and touch events, you really need to be able to test what that's going to look like and how that's going to operate in a real environment. You might have ideas about how you want to use touch events, but actually you might be better off using a click event. You really need to take a look at your use case, and you need to get under the hood on some of this stuff, and the tools allow you to do that without having a device in front of you. But of course, it's nice to eventually be able to really touch a device and see what it operates like.
Yeah, that's the next step. If you want to actually start building and simulating a device again, there's the simulator. It's an add-on for Firefox, which you can download and install. And then you got a simulated environment in an own window with an own logging box next to it. And you have a button that when you connect the phone, you can send your app to the phone directly once you've done. So that's a great way to actually start building your app and then sending it only necessarily to the phone when you need to do, because it's no fun trying to type in URLs and reloading things on the phone the whole time. Other environments are working as well on remote debugging, because in the end you want to get feedback from the phone to your system. There's JSBin, for example, which does a WebSockets connection to your phone as well. That's other ways of debugging it. But the simulator is a great start to get you going and actually start building things in the operating system and start getting a feel for it as well. I found it interestingly enough that a lot of people will not start anything until they have hardware in their hands.
It is a bit of a mental block. I think that it's interesting that where the web has come from is that And one of the things that's accelerated development and innovation on the web is the fact that you can just sit down in front of a web browser and build an application, test it. There's a real fast cycle of development there. Not so much when you have a bunch of devices that you also need to test on. You need to see what those are like. But I think that's the whole point about these kinds of tools, is to try and accelerate that speed so that we get back to the kind of fast iteration that you can do on the web.
And a bit of the flexibility that the web always had. A lot of people are confused about, like, oh my God, I've got so many mobile devices to support. And as a web developer from the old school, I never knew what kind of resolution people had. I don't know what computer they had. I don't know what connection they had. You always worked in a flexible world, and that was the beauty of it. And I think this is something we're rediscovering now somehow.
Yeah. You absolutely cannot build your application with an assumption about what resolution and what capabilities the device you're sending that application to will have. You have to think responsibly, and especially about device resolution, but also about event support, different kinds of APIs, the support of those APIs. You have to build your application to be fault tolerant for that kind of stuff.
So take a look at the developer tools when you're writing HTML5. Resize your screen to different sizes, and don't go directly to the 320 pixels. Try what happens with 318 and 325 as well.